Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. So, a lot of times we talk about saving money and all that stuff, but some of these habits, you learn them over time, and so, you hear it's easier to start doing these things earlier because the earlier you can make these habits, the better off you are, right? One of the big things that you hear in the financial world is start investing early, right? The earlier you invest, like the better it is because of compound interest. Because let's be honest, most of the people who are trying to learn about money now had to learn lessons about money the hard way, and probably by yourself, right? Like you didn't have someone to teach you none of this stuff. I would say that's probably why it's super important to teach your children about money when they're still young, right? When's the first time you learned how to open a savings account, how to budget, learn how credit works? Or here's an old one for some people: how to balance a checkbook, right? Because honestly, probably a lot later than you should have, right? Most of us go to the majority, of our youth without learning basic financial principles, right? You probably don't learn most of it until you're getting ready to graduate high school, like probably at the youngest, honestly. Um, at school, we learn how to, find a country on a map, but not how a credit score works. At home, we learn the difference between maybe, a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver, but not the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. Well, thankfully, that's just starting to change, right? A lot of experts say that children as young as 3 can learn basic money concepts. If you put even a small amount of effort into preparing your child for a life of fiscal responsibility and financial literacy, their chances of succeeding just skyrocket, right? They increase drastically. So one of the things we want to do is we want to make it casual for them, right? Talking about money with your kids can feel a little weird and awkward, right? Kind of like explaining the birds and the bees, right? That's probably why people now are more comfortable discussing their sex lives with strangers than their credit scores. Instead of approaching money conversations as serious dialogues, make it a regular part of your day to day interactions. Bring the topic up often so your kids learn that money affects every decision you make, from the home you buy to the family vacation that you plan. You can even turn lessons into games. If you're at the grocery store, let the kids guess how much each item costs. If you're talking about a profession, see who can guess the closest to the median salary. They may not be the most exciting games you ever play with your kid, but it will get them to start thinking about money in a curious and interactive way. Um, there's a guy who wrote a book called "My Wife Quit Her Job." Right? Um, he's got 2 kids, ages, I think they're around 9 and 10, 9 and 11, something like that. And started casually bringing up money, years earlier, right? The key to he says the key to teaching young kids about money is to make them realize that everything has a cost, right? Every time we go to a restaurant or grab ice cream, we make sure the kids know how much everything costs and compare that amount against what they have in their bank accounts, right? Another thing we want to do is be a good example, right? Kids won't always listen to what you have to say, but they'll definitely see what you do, even if you don't think they're paying attention. If they see you speed through traffic or coast a red light, they'll assume it's okay. Personal finance is no different, right? Lecturing your 5-year-old about the importance of saving is great, but the lesson's really not going to stick, if they see you buying something you can't afford. Going against your own advice, that's a really bad precedent and will make it harder to get through just like anything you want to get to, like, be like, hey, this, that, and if you're not doing those things, they'll be like, well, you say that, but you're not doing it, so it must not be that important. Watch how you spend money around your kids. Do you indulge every desire and whim while trying to teach them self control? Do you get a raise and celebrate with a new car? Your kids are just gonna they're going to soak all this up, right? Everything that you do, they're just going to soak it all in watching you. So you need to really be mindful of your actions. Um, you know, some people witness this with their own parents, right? Who struggle with credit card debt for years, and watching them say no to things that they really wanted to do because, debt taught them to live with, just it's just like something that hangs over them, right? Like having so much debt, right? Watching your own parents say no to things they really want to do because of debt, right, might teach you to live within your means so that you can save for what you want, right? Another thing you can do is you can let them try it out. Maybe when they're around 6 or so and you go on like a family vacation, right? You can fall victim. Let's say you go to Disney, right? You don't fall victim to the, Disney industrial complex and, beg your parents to buy every souvenir you see, right? Most of them are going to say no, or explaining, you got to explain that visits to the park are pricey enough on its own, right? And most kids might think, oh, my parents are just trying to skimp out on me. They don't want to buy me anything. Really not realizing that, daily admission to some of the theme parks run hundreds of dollars a person, right? And then, another thing you can do is the next time you visit, right? Maybe give your kids an allowance or something like that, months before a trip, and then make it clear to your kid that they're responsible for any toys or gifts that they want, right? So they have to save up their own money so that they can splurge once they get to the park. And then once they get to the park, right, they might realize that everything was really, really expensive. Like, holy crap. So even though you can finally afford to buy, something you really want, you might not find anything you liked enough to justify the cost, right? If you walk around the gift shops in Disney complaining how everything was overpriced, your kids might start realizing that, hold on now, like, what's going on here, right? And those lessons might really, really stick with them, right? And you should really research most things before especially big money purchases. You need to really, really research it before you buy it, and don't make any rash decisions or purchases, right? So letting your kids learn how money works for themselves is a powerful tool, right? It's a New York Times columnist, right, and an author of The Opposite of Spoiled. This guy's name is Ron Lieber, right? He says parents can do this by giving kids an allowance to practice money management. An allowance lets them test the principles you're trying to instill before they go out into the real world. Money is a tool for learning like any other, and an allowance is how we regularize the teaching. Right? Most households that are lucky enough to have more money than average don't overthink the number of other tools for learning that they supply regularly, like books, art supplies, musical instruments. These are all the things we want kids to get good at, to be patient with, and persevere on, right? So why shouldn't money be any different? As long as they're using it responsibly, right? Determine how much to give by calculating the amount you spend a year on each child's non-essentials. Toys, video games, movies. Divide that amount by 52 and give that sum to them each week. You can also ask other parents, and respect how much they give their kids. Make it clear to your kids, what they're expected to buy with their allowance and what you'll still pay for. The boundaries should be clear so there's no confusion as to what's, their responsibility and what's yours, right? So to kind of summarize this all up, honestly, teaching your kids the, valuable money lessons, it really doesn't have to be that hard. Just incorporate conversations about money into your everyday life and adopt healthy money habits yourself. There's no reason your children shouldn't have successful financial lives. Really hope you guys got some good information out of this. If you did, go ahead and like the button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Until I see you guys in the next video, y'all be safe.